Hello, and thank you for joining the first edition of Journalist Hangout this week. I'm Ayodele Uzubakun. Today on the program, 3 weeks after conclusion of investigation of killing of 3 policemen by the soldiers in Taraba State, presidency yet to act on reports. Federal government commences payments of new minimum wage to junior workers as organized labor threatens to go ahead with planned strike. And later on the show, leadership of the House of Representatives, security chiefs meet over worsening insecurity in Nigeria. I'll be hanging out with Gani Kaire Balogun, Sam Ibemere, and Wale Adedayo. So if you're ready, let the hangout start now. Thank you for joining us again. Oftentimes, our willpower and passion to do which is right are sacrificed on the altar of bureaucracy. The public outcry that greeted the killing of 3 IRT policemen by soldiers of 93 Battalion of the Nigerian Army, Takum in Taraba State in August, is about to die down. 3 weeks after the conclusion of an investigation to unravel the mystery, the presidency is yet to act on the panel reports. This seeming inaction on the matter and what befalls the kidnap kingpin on the center of the crisis, that's Amisu Bala, popularly known as Wadume, remind us of a statement credited to a Cuban-born author, Raul Ramos Sanchez, which goes thus: the greatest power of bureaucracy is to make the smart act stupid and good to act evil. How do we avoid this, gentlemen? GKB, let me start from you. When this event were following it on Journalist Hangouts on a daily basis, when it started, when these 3 IRT guys killed, and even till they apprehended Wadume, and after his apprehension, a panel was set up by the defense headquarters, and they had 2 weeks. They were given 2 weeks, a mandate of 2 weeks to conclude their report. In between that 2 weeks, Wadume was apprehended, and it came. He has been singing ever since that time, and yes. The bottom line is now that it has been submitted to the presidency, and the presidency is keeping mute.
Well, if you know the process of things like this, you realize the fact that we still have to wait for a white paper to come out, and we still have to wait for government to act on the white paper with another white paper. By the time the paper gets brown, then we will get some results. Jokes apart, I think those in government are aware that our attention span is very, very limited, normally on the average of 20 minutes. I'm telling you that if you go back to our program 3 weeks ago, things that we discussed with vehement passion are no longer on the table or the front burner. And that to me is the tragedy of what we go through as a nation. But this matter is operating on 2 levels. The Army-police relationship, the Army's relationship in internal security, as well as the elements that surround how the Army will be treated henceforth when it comes to internal security are tied to these reports. If it's not well handled, we might end up with an army that is above the law.
We are talking about 3 highly trained IRT officials, and we've seen, I went through the achievement of this particular people, the individuals that actually killed in that event. They partook in several big profile operation before now, and just like that.
No, I think what you are looking at goes beyond just charging those involved to court. Because like my colleague pointed out, that with time you might be looking at a situation where the Nigerian Army or other members of the armed forces themselves have been above the law. But I doubt if that is the case really here. And I'll go back to when Raji Fashola was governor in Lagos. It depends on the leadership. You're talking about the time lapse now between the time the panel was set up and even before the panel concluded the sitting. The police has done a very good job by apprehending the primary suspect involved in the case. I will permit the use of this expression if there had been quality leadership in place at the political level. I'm not talking about the IG level. At the political level, by now, those involved should have been charged in court. By dragging their feet, they are creating a situation where there will be mutual suspicion between the police and the Nigerian army. Not just the top echelon, and I'm not talking about the chief of army staff. I'm talking about the rank and file. I'm talking about soldiers, ordinary soldiers, and ordinary policemen, seeing themselves as enemies. And meanwhile, what should have happened now is that it is not all the soldiers in Nigeria who are involved in these things, just a few of them. And the military has been dealing with them on their own for some time. The same thing, I mean, some policemen have been caught for armed robbery and sundry crime. What should have happened is that the political leadership in charge of the Ministry of Justice should have gone ahead to prosecute those involved in these things immediately. But I've pointed out on this program, maybe once or twice, that one of the challenges we have in Nigeria, that law enforcement in this country is still subject to the whims and caprices of those holding political positions. Ordinarily, the process of charging people to court should have been, direct, without need for a presidential intervention. For instance, setting up presidential panel and all those things. It's not necessary. We have law enforcement agencies, and the police did well by apprehending the guy. End of story. So what are you investigating? Let the police do the job and charge the guy to court. And we'll go and get a lawyer and end of story.
I think in the quest of unraveling what happened in this particular case, I think the panel might be necessary because a lot of other police guys, military guys, were found complicit as like an accessory to what you had. And the structure, they want to look at if there are other gangs that might be involved in this kind of thing.
That's the job of the police, not that of any other panel.
It's internal security. It's the police duty.
I think there is much more to it. When that panel was set up, those of us on that side felt that it ought to have been an independent panel. Once that was not put in place, it cast a lot of...
What do you mean by independent panel?
I mean, you have a panel that is largely constituted by members of the military. You do understand? Who are almost interested parties in the case.
No, right. We have the Navy, Army, and...
Navy is not military?
But that's exactly
Air Force is not military, Army is not military?
That's what we're saying. I mean, if you...
Okay, you are saying that there's a tendency for them to tilt towards the...
No, it's not.
But this case is...
Read the call.
Yeah, that's the point that's the point we're making, that if you had what, in my view, amounted to an independent body investigating the case, that would have sent clear signals to the members of the public that we want to be thorough with this, we want to be above board in handling it. I mean, we've talked about, the relationship between the military, the police, and the rest of the security agencies, which has not been too very, cordial. So the issue here is how much of truth will manifest from this entire setup. That's the worry. That's the concern of the public that is watching. And you want to ask Ayo, the observation that we have alluded to here in terms of speed, it doesn't come to me as a surprise. I mean, you have the presidency that is acting true to time, not quick to take decisions, it takes its time. So if you think that the response to this issue ought to have been quicker, I mean, you will be thoroughly disappointed. But having said that, what I think that we also need to pay attention to in the case of Hamisu alias Wadume is that there is a lot of conspiracy theory involved here. There are very strong speculations that the top hierarchy of the military, in this case, is involved. You have names that have been mentioned, somebody as high ranking as an army captain. Do you understand? They don't want to, it's like committing suicide, as it were. You don't want to.
The captain is a mid-level officer.
Well,
mid-level.
Whether you like it or not, I mean,
mid-level officer.
Not, yeah, well,
just
it's not an operative.
But
even at that,
not a redneck yet.
Yeah, but even at that, you don't want to rubbish an institution. Yeah. Okay, so there are concerns that this delay might just be some sort of, activity intended to just, douse the matter. But Ayo, this case is not one that is going to be swept under. Nigerians are interested in this matter. The manner in which those police officers were killed is not one that any person would just gloss over. Nigerians are interested in this matter, and one thing that we can do is to continue to speak up at a forum like this, to remind the presidency and the authorities that Nigerians are interested in this matter, and until it is resolved, we are going to continue to speak up about it.
GKB, when you look at what led to this whole thing, that's Waduma himself and the police people, after declaring him wanted, and he was apprehended in Kano. And this is a lot of police, if they want to actually work, it was fished out. Yeah. They make sure it was smoked out in Kano and they got him. So moving forward now, is he going to face the normal courts, or what will be his fate after?
Well, as far as the police is concerned, you and I know that when we were younger, there used to be a saying that you want to get caught, kill a policeman. And then you realize that under 24 hours, they will pick up anybody. Because I remember there was a case on Lagos Island of a man that we thought had supernatural powers. Then he removed the policeman's cap and went away. 24 hours later, he was at Molodi station. And said he couldn't be touched. But having said that, we have to understand two things. The Nigerian army has been part and parcel of the problem of the Nigerian state. They serve two purposes: they protect us and the oppressors. And in this case, they are hell-bent on ensuring that they are not disgraced, whatever that means. Because you and I know that once somebody has broken the law, killed officers of the law, they must face the law. All this foot dragging is an obvious attempt to find a common ground, let me call it soft landing, for the army as an institution. Because already the reputation is shot. Because it's obvious that we cannot now talk to authority that members of the Nigerian army
involved is just an individual in the army.
It's part and parcel of a system.
No, I'll disagree with GKB. It has little or nothing to do with the Nigerian army as an institution. The people at fault, primarily the presidency. Then secondarily, the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation. That is, if the prosecution is going to come at the federal level.
Yeah.
But ordinarily, an active governor in that state, that's where the crime took place. The governor of that state, the Attorney General of that state, should have taken charge. I mean, the primary soldier has been arrested. There's a process, no matter the rank in the army. Once a judge issues an order, even if you're a major general, a lieutenant general, you will produce in court. The process should have been followed. Something should have started to happen. But my colleague got it right the other time, that there is a slow motion approach to this current administration. When the protest started in Lagos a while back, people attacking ShopRite and so on, I told a senior colleague that, look, if the government had reacted on time, that thing would not have happened. You understand? Until people take to the streets, until they start doing some things which government consider negative, they'll just continue, to act as if nothing is going on. Ordinarily, by now...
First caller. Go on.
Okay, I just want to ask a question. Unfortunately, Babajide is not around. No, unfortunately, Babajide is not around. There's something I want to find out. The Minister of Labour said something about minimum wage being paid to level 1 to 6.
We're not there yet.
They received that salary last month, August.
We'll talk about it.
Yes, please. The question I want to ask, I want people to find out something. What I want to find out is that, is the police not included in the minimum wage? If they are, I'm telling you that no person under that cadre of level 1 to 6 in the police received that salary last month. That's what I'm complaining about.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. I think that's about our second discussion. We'll address it. Wale?
Yes. What I'm saying is that there should have been prosecution that should have been initiated by now, either at the federal level or at the state level. And that should, because automatically the police had already solved the problem of the panel. It's not as if the panel should stop his work. You understand? Because when you have cases like this, high-ranking officers assisting criminals, it is possible there are others within the system. But leave those ones, you can go there and solve those. But on the immediates, those who acted, the junior one, the captain, and all those others involved, they should have been charged in court by now. We should not be waiting for that panel report before they are charged. Because those ones they are investigating, it might take a while.
Yeah, but I don't know how that arrangement is going to work. I mean, if a panel was put in place by Mr. President, and basically the expectation is that he needs to see that report and then act on it. And until that is done, I'm not sure we are going to make take a step forward.
That's the report of the panel.
No. But I mean, there are processes.
Yeah.
A panel was instituted. I mean, all of us saw the members of panel and how they've gone about their responsibilities. And what we're saying here is the panel ought to submit its report. Okay, that's the first step. All right. But the concern here is because what we are seeing is more or less shrouded, appears to be shrouded in secrecy. Okay, we're not likely to get at the root of this matter. That's my worry.
No,
that's my worry.
What Wale is saying is the fact that this appears to be an open and short case.
Okay.
So it may be part of a bigger problem. But for now, the one that we have the culprits, he has confessed.
And
We know exactly those who did it.
But
even at that,
the level, we have information to the effect that the Chief of Defense Staff might have submitted his report to the president.
The army set up their own panel.
Yes,
The
before
police also set
the
up their own
president
panel.
traveled. So we are talking about how to expedite action.
Ordinarily, sorry, Sam, don't get this wrong. I think we are mixing things up. You see, the tragedy of Nigeria is such that we are kind of involved in a military mentality carryover. My brother, once a crime is committed, forget about any panel that the president is setting up. The police and the Ministry of Justice are considered empowered to do their job first.
Absolutely, I
Whatever
understand that.
panel is being set up by Mr. President, that's his
Is that the
business.
case
For
here
whatever,
now?
there is a case that the Ministry of Justice ought to act on.
Yes,
the point there is
it has not been done. They are waiting for the
That's
panel.
what we are talking about.
Yeah.
There are two things.
Ideally.
The panel is different from what should happen under Nigerian law. Once you commit an offense, the police arrest you, prosecute you, or send your file to the DPP for prosecution, for advice on prosecution. That's what should be happening now. It has nothing to do with the panel. Whatever the panel is going to recommend, that is their business. The problem we have as Nigerians today is that the way things were being done in the military days, we are carrying them over.
I think we understand all that.
To this. We don't need to wait for any panel report. If there's going to be additional whatever, in terms of those involved, what is it the panel want to find out? The guy who ran away has been arrested. The captain has been named, has been involved. So let him go and clear himself before the police and before the courts. End of story. So if there is more links to that in how
Sam, do you think
the
because
army, police, and drug can clean themselves? End of
the
story.
police, they are like an interested party in this case. Do you think they will be able to take these steps ahead of the panel recommendation, the sitting?
You know, what my brother is saying here basically is that in an ideal situation, this is what ought to obtain.
Yeah.
But we have a situation where
It's not ideal.
yeah, the military as an institution is at the center of all this. And there is an attempt to ensure that, I mean, he used the word soft landing, to ensure that this is handled in a manner that the country doesn't, or the military doesn't suffer too much reputation damage. Ideally, what ought to happen is that a crime has been committed. Prosecution ordinarily ought to follow. And then those who have been indicted face the law. All right. That is the expectation of Nigerians and any person who is discerning. What we're asking for here is, if a panel has been constituted and the job done, those who ought to take appropriate decision on the report of the panel ought to do that very quickly. And thereafter, the rule of law should take its place. That's the point that we're making. But I don't, understand how we can reconcile the panel responsibilities and that of the law. The police ordinarily, if they had the power to exercise, and they ought to, should have taken this matter, if politics wasn't involved, straight to the courts, prosecute, identify who the culprits are, all right, and put them to trial. That ordinarily should be the process. But we have a complex case here where the military as an institution is involved and people are trying to do cover-ups and all that. You and I as laymen understand that somebody has been indicted, confessions made, or allegedly made, and all that. And it ought to be a straightforward case. Why the case is not being prosecuted immediately is what is kind of confounding.
Okay, solution now, GKB, what should happen?
What should happen is the fact that the captain, Mawadume, should by now have been brought before a judge, and whether they are going to be detained or not, that's the process that we are supposed to be right now. After that, the normal trial will commence. Yeah. But right now, that has not been done. Because, like I said, it's an open and shut case. The man has been found. The captain is known. They've released his name. We know who he is.
Among a lot of his men.
So what else are we waiting for? This is something that should take 48 hours to arrange before a court of law. And then the judge can now determine how long they want the case to drag. But we have not even gone to the first step, not to talk of getting justice.
Agreement.
So, the reality is that the panel report will have little or nothing to do with prosecution. To me, as a student of a little bit of security, the way I look at it is that what the panel will try to do, or what the panel is trying to do, is not to find the culprits. It's not a question of getting at the culprits. It's a question of getting at how do you maintain a harmonious working relationship among the law enforcement agencies we have and the security service. I'm talking about the armed forces.
Aziz is calling us from Ife in Osun State. Thank you for joining us, Aziz.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, go ahead with your contribution.
This matter, I think Mr. Abajide has said it all, that this matter, the government will be very, very slow about it. And he said that it's a very simple case. And I agree with all the panelists there that in a developed country, this matter should have been go to the police, arrest them, charge them to court and prosecute all the people who are competent about it. Why are we just dragging this matter for too long like this? And they said something about our president. I'm a Buhari loyalist, but the way my president always wrote this thing is, in fact, I don't like it. Please tell my president. But soldiers be charged to court. Why now?
Okay,
Please.
Thank you, Aziz. I think it's still the same thing, saying that the time...
It's a straightforward matter. He was saying that the police involved. No. Even if it is not soldiers who killed the policeman, he said the police will prosecute, except at some level where the DPP advise otherwise. Whoever kills the policeman, I mean, has committed a crime, the police will dictate, investigate, and get the person and charge the person in court. Yeah. It's not just a question of...
No, I agree with you, but we have a knot that has to be untied. And that's what we're calling for. That knot has to be untied, and it has to be untied very quickly. We don't like the situation we have on our hands, where issues before the presidency take months. Do you understand? To receive some attention. Okay? We've got to make some progress beyond our attitude, towards getting things done. It's been argued. Yes, it's a simple, straightforward case because somebody has been caught, allegations raised, confessions made, and the rest of them. The matter should go before the courts and let the rule of law apply. That's what we're asking for, and it has to be done very quickly. There is no alternative to it.
All right, still to come. Federal government commences payment of new minimum wage to junior workers as organized labor threatens to go ahead with the planned nationwide strike. Stay with us. It's still Journalist Hangouts. Welcome back. If you're just watching us, this is Journalist Hangouts. We're reaching you live from Television Continental. For a long time in our political history, government has deployed the divide and rule tactics to break the ranks of organized labor during negotiations. That may be playing out in the new minimum wage implementation saga. Nigeria's Minister of Labor, Chris Ngige, has confirmed that junior workers in the Federal Civil Service have started receiving 30,000 naira minimum wage. This is despite breakdown in negotiation between government and labor on the consequential adjustments for all cadres of workers. Ngige said payment of level 1 to 6 commenced last month, while the executive cadre of grade levels 7 to 17 will come later. But the secretary of the trade union side on a joint National Public Service Negotiation Council, Alade Lawal, said all is set for workers to embark on strike over the issue. Gentlemen, while Chris Ngige Sam, while he dropped it that we've even implemented the new minimum wage for a certain cadre, and that's news and new to me, you know, from level 1 to level 6. So that one, I feel that there's no controversy over the adjustments. So while they are deliberating over 7 to 17, they've implemented it on those lower cadre. So what I'm saying now is that from 7 to 17, who should adjust? Should the Labour change their position or the federal government?
Well, Ayo, you know, in collective bargaining, it's a give and take thing, basically. It's not meant to be a straightforward thing. I mean, you make your demands as an organization, and then the government, you know, responds. So what we're basically witnessing is not unusual, you know, in the art of collective bargaining. What the minister said concerning operatives within the level 1 to level 6 cadre being paid has been confirmed by some senior servants civil servants that I know. That is not in dispute. What is in dispute is that the consequential adjustment that ought to apply to cadres between 7 and 17, is being negotiated. What the workers have asked for in that cadre, I think originally was about 29% and all that, and government has offered either 10, I don't remember what the exact figures are, but the figures that have been offered, the offer made by government is not agreeable. And so you expect some shifting of position and all that. But it's taking a while because for government, it's all part of the game. Do you understand? Buy as much time as you can, all right? And then see who blinks first, as it were. Now, what the workers have said that they will do is to say, look, if we don't get this within this period of time, we are going to embark on strike. In fact, I'm aware that an arm of the workers too have called on Mr. President again, to intervene. How that will play out is at the level of imagination. But the point to be made here is the negotiations that are going on are the sort that can be quickly dealt with if there is sincerity on the part of both parties. I don't, in all honesty, think that what the workers have asked for that they will get. But you play your card in such a manner that by the time you make concessions, what comes to you is going to be closer to what the expectations are. So we only hope that between Labour and workers, that these issues can be quickly resolved. What the Minister of Labour has said is that the government is not necessarily buying time. That is his argument. And that is because, the committee that was set up, to, deal with this matter was dissolved because there was a change, there was a new cabinet put in place. And then for the ministers, they need to settle down, get reports from their permanent secretaries who are involved, in the negotiations and all that. But that is taking time. It pays them to do all that and say, well, it's taking us, a bit of time. But we know that these matters can be quickly dealt with in such a way that confidence can be returned to the system, and we don't suffer this kind of distractions going forward. The
Nigerian Labour Congress, they are not saying that we are not going to give notice of strike. We are going to embark on that strike.
I don't think that will be okay, because
that will be okay?
No, it won't be okay at all.
Okay.
Is it beyond the issue of minimum wage? So as if a lot of people are not thinking about the Nigerian situation. Fine, there is need to, improve on the minimum wage in the country, blah, blah, blah. But the economic situation in Nigeria is such that even with the new minimum wage, it's not as if things will improve overnight. And right now, things are so bad. So by the time you go on another strike, it's like you are punishing the people you claim to be fighting for. But don't get me wrong. As my colleague was talking now, Sam, there's something that just came to me. There are some arguments you want to make for government sometimes. And you just think about it, won't I look so stupid? Look at the amount of money budgeted for vehicles by the National Assembly. Look at how much is going to go down there for how many hours of work. And I mean, you want to defend government sometimes that, look, the economy is bad, the economy is this, the economy is that. But for just a few guys who just be there for how many hours before you know it, they are another recess now, compared to people who toil day and night. I mean, so I don't know. But like you said, it should be a give and take thing. But above all, the interest of not just the workers, because most of the time when we talk about workers, we are mainly talking about government workers.
Absolutely true.
This payment of the wages
service
to, you are talking about public service, you're not talking about private sector workers. If you talk about private sector workers, I'm sure that in the next 20 years, it affects them too. But how many people in the private sector will be able to pay this, even this one that has been agreed to their staff? How many? This is not abroad where a lot of things are enforced. It won't happen here in the next 20 years. So by the time you say you're going on strike, this and that, blah, 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 when you return from strike, you will go back and
face realities.
No. Get your salary and things like that. But those of them in the private sector, and when I'm talking about private sector, it's not, the organized private sector in Nigeria is not as large as the informal side of private sector. You know, you have the informal side of private sector that is not as organized as some big private organizations. And that is where people suffer the most. Once you go on strike, things like this, they suffer the most, and they are in the majority, more than those who are shouting about strike and things like that. With or without the 30,000 minimum wage, these ones remain where they are. That the NNC, to me, is not even bothered about their situation. So for whatever it is worth, they need to weigh both sides of the coin and look at the situation of the poorest of the poor, who are going to suffer the consequences of whatever strike they want to embark upon.
GKB, will this in any way trigger inflation?
Well, inflation will go up either way. You and I know that. But one thing I disagree with Wale about is the fact that the government has not been sincere. We've been on this matter now for close to 2 years, if you remember. And we said it before the election that governors have said, both privately and otherwise, that there's no way they can afford the new minimum wage without going under. And this, of course, has reflected in what they're trying to do with taxes. VAT here, this here, giving due charge to internal revenue and all that. I think there's a need for us to really reevaluate what we do about inflation in this country to lead to a point where constitutional provisions, 5 years for wage increase, will not be seen as a battle for the soul of Nigeria. That's what the government is painting. That if you should do this for you, Nigeria will go under. But like Wale said, if you look at the level of obnoxious way of spending by those in government and their number, compared to the number of people we are talking about, realize that there must be a way to give and take. But so far, Labour has bent over backwards to accommodate government nuances in the last 18 months that they're about. Don't forget, this is about the 7th notice of strike that we had, especially before the election. That got so bad that 3 days to election, they had to quickly call a meeting headed by one governor from the Southwest to work out modalities so they can sign. But you and I know we said on this program that hell will freeze over before some governors agree to pay that money. That's what is playing out now. And believe me, this will play out for the rest of the year. They're already playing the divide and rule mantra by taking away the poorest of the poor out of the equation and saying, fine, we are taking care of you. These people are oppressors. We'll deal with them later. But it doesn't work that way because the economy relies on a circle. The public worker will pay the informal person. Informal person will buy stuff. This all use the money to farmers. Farmers return the money to farm. Come back to the informal sector. If one of that chain is broken, the entire chain is broken. And don't let them fool themselves. If nothing is done quickly, that 30,000 they've been on in the last 2 years will become untenable in the next 1 year.
These consequential adjustments, it will also be, it will also come down to the state level, as in however it is adjusted.
Yes.
So my issue now is, let's come to the states.
It's interesting.
Now, it could take this long for the federal government even to implement the almighty federal government to implement minimum wage. How are you going to implement 30,000 minimum wage in some states?
In states that cannot even pay
I
10,000
think we already
minimum.
have, we already have
And this consequential adjustment.
Yeah, we already have a challenge on our hands, and GKB already, alluded to that, because the governors started crying long ago that, they will not be able to pay, the minimum wage, and that was largely responsible for the length of time it took, for us to even agree on some, to reach some agreements. Across the regions, you had governors who came out to say, look, we cannot do this, we cannot do that, and all that. So we expect a major crisis on our hands. They sent signals long ago that they will not be able to pay. So what you have, or what we're likely to have on our hand, is a hardening of positions, both at the federal and the state levels. And the government has not even helped matters, because the kind of signals that it's sending out in terms of tax policies, that it will implement, is simply saying to the workers, look, by the time you get this money, you are going to cough it out by way of taxes. Exactly. And that's why the workers are insisting that, no, we're not going to shift grounds, you're going to give us the percentage, that we're asking for. So the consequential adjustment issue that we have playing out at the federal level is also going to play out at the state level, because once you move somebody from 18,000 naira to 30,000, you have already, bumped into a cadre that used to earn that amount of money. So it's expected that you would also adjust so that the person who earlier had been on that cadre, moves, enjoys, from the largesse, as it were. So we have a challenge on our hands, and most of our states, we must admit, are not viable. That's the truth. They're not viable. And it's a situation that we must confront as a nation squarely. How we're going to deal with it, of course, is a different, kettle of fish. But I think that we need to live. We need to be real to ourselves, and that means that the law that put the minimum wage together, we might need to take another look at it. We pride ourselves as a federation, okay? What does it mean to us in very practical terms? All right?
Because this would have been put into consideration when they were negotiating this minimum wage. What you are saying now, that thing has been signed to law.
Yeah.
And it's binding across the board.
So governors are part of
the tripartite.
Exactly. Unless there is an amendment, they have to carry the burden. They don't have a choice on the matter. That's the law.
But like we have raised concerns here, there are also a lot of wastages within the system. A lot of wastages. Those who are in positions to run the affairs of states appear to live life in a manner that creates the impression that there's so much money out there. All right? So we need to make sacrifices at some point. We've heard about security votes and the rest of them. Questions are being asked. And we have heard lame excuses on the part of some of our governors, telling us why they will have to continue to, run security votes that are not transparent. They cannot account for. So these are the issues.
It's a carryover from the military.
I think that the workers' demands are genuine.
Wally, if I take on this?
See, for me, like I said earlier, there's no big deal about this thing. The reality is that both sides need to come to a conclusion that will be beneficial to the poorest of the poorest of the poor. But Sam took the words out of my mouth again by talking about political leaders, appointees and elected ones, who live life as if there's an endless supply of funds out there. Meanwhile, ordinary people who are working, you are telling them they cannot be paid a certain amount. But the second one, which touched on the issue of our federalism, is that for me as a person, Wale Adedayo, I do not believe that the minimum wage in Sokoto should be the same as Lagos. The minimum wage in Maiduguri can never ever be the same as what obtains in
standard of
River State,
living,
because the standard of living, cost of living, and things like that differ from state to state. And what each state is generating on its own, irrespective of what is coming from the center, what is state, the responsibilities of each state, what you are able to get as a state, the kind of money you generate, either from federal or from internal, is different. The responsibilities you are carrying is different. Cost of living in your state is different. So if they've not looked at this before, and all of them, they agreed they have to do it, then it is their burden. And to me, as Yoruba will say, Allah we say God don't catch them. Because when we're talking about federalism, true federalism, not many of them were interested. And this is one of the key components, key arguments of true federalism.
And
because
we can't have a change unless there's a constitutional amendment.
If a flat per month in your state is like 500 naira or 1,000 naira, and you come to my state, a flat, a two-bedroom flat in a month is like maybe 3,000, 5,000, if not 10,000. You understand? Whatever salary I'm getting, you understand? I mean, the other guy will be having excess money. Meanwhile, the whole of mine will go on transport, accommodation, feeding, and so on. So if those of them who have failed to join that train of agitation for true federalism, to them now, they'll be whipping and gnashing of teeth there.
Okay. Moving on now. The planning process is one of the most integral aspects of warfare. Worried by the festering spate of insecurity in Nigeria, the House of Representatives summoned the security chiefs for talk. After a botched meeting last Friday, the service chiefs met with leadership of the House on Monday, where the Speaker, Femi Gbajabiamila, accused them of disdain for the lawmakers. He also blamed unseriousness on their path for escalating insecurity in the country. After the closed-door meeting, we expect effectiveness from the military in the prosecution on the war against terror. Certainly, Nigerians hope for the better. GKB.
Well, personally, I'm not a big fan of fanfare when it comes to security issues. There are far more important things to do. For example, under this leadership.
Let's start from the House, the Speaker inviting them, and on Friday he threatened to even report them to Mr. President. And
he's not aware of the constitutional provisions and the powers that he has. I think we have been running the government like a family business where you have to report me to my father if I have not obeyed you. That to me itself is non-entity. But the point I'm trying to make is this. The House of Rep have committees on defense. They have one for the Army, for the Navy. Their job is to oversee and report back to the House. It's these reports that the Speaker will now use as the basis for calling this sort of meeting. This is just grandstanding. It's not important. It's just to show that we are concerned. But follow the due process. There are people empowered by law to do this. You set up committees. The subcommittee on defense should be the one that will meet with these guys. And then bring it to the General House. We tend to do things in this country in such a manner to show how serious that we are. Because when I heard it yesterday or 2 days ago, it was funny. Reporting to the president for what? You have the power, it's in your pocket. You have the statutory element to do it.
to order their warrant of arrest?
It's not even your job as Speaker, it's the job of the chairman of the subcommittee on defense to do that. It's a committee level thing.
The committee level is not the whole house.
It's a subcommittee level thing. Call the head of the army to the subcommittee.
I think it's just a question of showmanship.
Yeah, they all
Just
want to
showing off
grandstand.
that, oh, we too are concerned about what is going on. And that is not the right thing to
That's not the
do.
thing to
You should
do.
go to the community level where you will be properly trashed. That is where you get solutions. That is where you ask the right questions. Because before they come there, the committee will have done its job, probing questions, solutions. The ones they are doing, they cannot get any solution. It's just,
for the cameras.
it's just grandstanding for the camera. Just to show people that
Eventually,
we
the
are
security
working.
chiefs turned up this morning.
Yes.
And I think by now the meeting should be over.
Yeah, that's exactly the point that we're making. You know, yes, they turned up after
So what?
the subtle blackmail, but what happens, you know, thereafter? In fact, Ayo, it will interest you that one group from somewhere, you know, they call themselves Northern blah blah blah, came up and said, and alleged really that the reason why Gbajabiamila, you know, the speaker, you know, was summoning the army chiefs is because he wants to extort them and all that. And I thought that that was very silly. But, but it just tells you how trivial, we've condemned issues of security, too. And it's very disturbing. You see, Nigeria has a huge problem to deal with, and that's the matter of our security. Now, in the last couple of years, the figures put out there is that we have spent over 3 trillion on security, okay? Now you ask yourself, how much of that money has been accounted for? Those are the kind of things we want to listen to. Those are the kind of issues that we want raised, at the level of either the Senate or the House of Reps. Until issues of that nature that are so sensitive are dealt with, as far as I'm concerned, I'll join my colleagues to say that they're basically, grandstanding. We need facts, we need data. All right, Nigerians are interested in how much has been spent, the impact of that on the wars that we have prosecuted, absolutely, Ayo, those are the concerns.
Take this call from Niger State. Abubakar Musa is calling us from Niger State. Thank you for joining us, Musa.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
Yes, good evening. Please go ahead with your contribution.
Oh, hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Abubakar Musa. I can hear you. Go ahead with your contribution, please.
At work.
I think, Sam.
Yeah, so Ayo, what we're asking for here is information, reliable information, credible information as to how the money that has been budgeted and allocated in the last couple of years.
Can that be divulged to
Oh,
the
yes,
public?
why not?
No.
Would not be with this not okay?
level.
No, what I'm
this not be
saying,
classified as-
I think we need to, what classification are we talking about? We're talking about taxpayers' money. Shouldn't they account to us? We're not asking them to tell us, to reveal their strategies, how they want to prosecute the war in the next 1-2 weeks. We're talking about history. I mean, you have had money spent, even if it is X naira. Please tell us how you spend that money. It is not the first time that nations are going to war. Ayo, for goodness sake, it's not the first time. Money has been spent. Tell us how the money has been spent. Give us the infographics. That is what is done in civilized societies. We're not asking for too much. It's your money. It's my money. So if the lawmakers have asked the service chiefs to appear before them, we expect them to ask very thorough questions. Unless that is done, it's child's play.
Tayo is calling us from Lagos. Thank you for joining us, Tayo.
Good evening, Ayo. Good evening, all the panelists. Yeah, straight to my point. I wanted to make point about the minimum wage issue, but let me go to the insecurity. About the insecurity, like Mr. I don't know, the man that just spoke now.
Yes, Sam.
You made mention of being open. We need. There is no. When they said they spent 3 trillion on the war, I still heard an information about a military man complaining that they are using the weapons they got during Shagari time. Recently, I read on the credible reporters or something, I can't remember the name, but they mentioned that they are still using weapons that were gotten during Shagari era. I don't know what was the 3 trillion used for. How was it spent? Is there anybody that is above the law? Even if the military wants to claim they are above the law, it's crazy. Please.
Thank you, Tayo.
Beyond the money he's talking about, that's in addition to what he said. Questions should have long ago been asked. How many men have we lost?
Yeah.
We need to know. Because the tragedy, I want to use that word again, is that most of our National Assembly members do not even realize that they represent some people. How many people have we lost?
And I still insist that some of this information might be classified.
No, I disagree.
I don't know
with you.
what that might do to the morale of the public or morale of the soldiers
that
fighting out there.
Exactly.
By the time you're telling them, oh, we've lost 4,000 men to...
No. You see, in most cases, I mean, I have friends there, junior ones, my mates and so on. The thing is, a lot of them are even discouraged that what they are doing there is not being appreciated out there. Then the other one is, like you rightly said, it's not just a question of how much have you spent but spent on what? The items you supplied, you bought, are they quality items? Okay, we've lost 10 so number of people. How did they die? Why did they die? What happened? Is it because of equipment? Is it because of strategy? Is it because of food? Is it because of what?
Logistics.
In other countries, that is where answers are often got to serious issues. Because if you spend money...
Or some of your men billed with 400 million naira.
Exactly.
What was that 400 million naira meant for?
No, if we have instituted the culture of accountability,
that will solve a lot of things.
Exactly. That would make the officers, those in charge, to sit up. Because you know you are going to be asked questions.
Exactly.
But because we have that gap, because somebody can wake up and tell us he's moving 4.4 billion naira from Sokoto to Abuja, and we don't even know what the money is meant for, and somebody sets up, again, under panel, to find out what has become of the money. You ask yourself, and now we are being told that...
And the panel will submit the reports in 5 years' time.
Now, that the guys who are dealing with our soldiers, permit me, this is not to demoralize them. In Borno, we are told, have better drones. And you ask yourself, how did it happen? So these are critical questions.
I think the National Assembly members are not really tutored on the powers that they have, oversight powers, usually when it comes to national security. And they've been behaving more or less like people who are novices, which is surprising because Fefe Gbajabiamila Amila has been there from day one.
Yeah.
And he has all the precursor experience that he can have. Number one, there are committees for the Army, for the Navy. There's a committee for procurement. And then they have to come back to the house to defend their budgets. Under which, of course, can now query how the money last year was spent. Not necessarily have to be in public, but it must be accounted for. But in Nigeria, we tend to gloss over serious matters.
And it's costing us a lot of lives.
Because these days, normally the House of Rep and the Senate have the power on a daily basis when there is crisis in the Northeast or anywhere to go into a session of the whole House, call the head of the army or whatever, get a report of their own committee, and then know exactly how to do it. But we want to do it in front of the camera to show we are concerned. That, to me, is an inanity.
Sam, ultimately, when you look at this war and the casualties and what should be the House be concerned about right now? Because I read a report earlier today saying that, look, in terms of equipment, that the Nigerian army might not be having the best of time.
Ayo, we're back to what we said earlier. Do you understand? We need to open up the system. We need to speak truth to power. We need to ask very relevant questions, okay? We need to deal with this Paraqua approach to governance. It is the Paraqua approach that made Gbajabiamila to say, I'm going to report you to daddy. Absolute nonsense, for goodness sake. I mean, you don't realize the powers that you have? Sit down, do your job. If you are not properly tutored, go through the books again, find out what your powers are, and deal with those things. That's what we're asking for. Don't tell us you want to report somebody to the president. We're not interested. We want
Paraqua and daddy.
I mean, let's get the job done.
I would thank you, Sam. Thank you very much. Sam had to use that word Paraqua. Thank you, Sam. Wale Adede,
thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And Osiare Gani Kayode Balogun, thank you for coming on this edition. Yeah. And that's our offering today. Join us tomorrow for another episode of the program. Also watch Journalist Hangout on our platforms showing on the screen. We're also on YouTube, youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Our feedback channel is Journalist Hangout at tvcnews.tv. I'm Ayodele Osubaku. Bye for now and see you tomorrow.